Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars. SoundCartel. If you're the kind of boss who insists on creating your employee's schedule or micromanages everything they do, then you're probably not going to survive in the workplace of the future. From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. Workplace trends are rapidly changing, and as Karen Gately observes, you need to be able to empower your team as they move to a more flexible way of work. Karen is an author and advisor on human performance and leadership, and CEO of HR consultancy Corporate Dojo. She looks back at how different work practices were before COVID, a far more structured and regimented period than what we're seeing now. Karen Gately's talking to Chris Ashmore.
In a nutshell, I'd say we were trying to run marathons every day. There was long hours for a lot of people. That included getting into an office. So there's a lot more travel time. And then trying to force ourselves to be on the job for those 8 hours on average. Obviously, every role's different. But I would say there was a lot more structure and a lot more expectation that employers had that things were predictable in terms of people's hours and how and where they work.
So what's happened? How has COVID changed things?
Well, I think it forced a lot of employers to rethink some of their firmly held beliefs around work and the way it can be done. So for a long time, what we were saying is there was value in having more flexible work practices. But the reality was a lot of employers were really hesitant to go down those paths. And a lot of that hesitancy was because of the need to control outcomes or influence performance because they can see people, because they can actually supervise people in the office. And then, of course, COVID hit and a lot of employers had to let go of some of those fears and just give new ways of working a go. And then through that period, some of those beliefs have been challenged and proven to be false. And it also forced employers to think outside the square. How do we actually achieve the same outcomes or even better outcomes in different ways? So, it forced a lot of creativity. So a lot more trust, a lot more creativity. And with that experience, some of those work practices have now become far more common and familiar and open to a lot of employers.
Well, with COVID still lingering around and states still being in lockdown, there are workers that are working from home and working in the office and a combination of both. Will these flexible workplaces be likely to stay, do you think, after COVID's gone?
I absolutely believe they are. And the reason I say that is in the past, flexible work practices was a competitive advantage. So they were the things that we as employers did to attract, for example, millennials to our businesses. So there was a lot of talk around millennials want more flexibility, they're demanding greater work-life balance, for example. And smart employers were starting to offer those work conditions as a way of competing for the best and retaining the best people in their businesses. Whereas now what I would say is that it's really become a baseline expectation. I think that, an employer who is close-minded to being flexible is going to be very quickly seen as quite backward in their thinking. And, for a younger workforce or the generations that are coming through now who are expecting employers to be reasonable, to provide a workplace culture that's going to have a positive impact on the quality of their lives, that's not going to be desirable in many instances. I also think it's going to stay because a lot of employers have actually learned that there are benefits for them as well. So being able to have less office space, spending less money on physical accommodation, spending less time, energy, money, for example, on aeroplanes and having to physically travel to places in order to deliver our work. So I've got clients, for example, who used to spend most weeks on aeroplanes going around to their various locations or sites if they're running a national business, who have been able to provide effective leadership to their teams from afar. They've had to work hard at learning how to do that, but feel more skilled, feel more confident, and feel more trusting in people's ability to still do the job, even though they're not sitting in the same room with them. So I think because of that heightened awareness, that heightened trust and the heightened demand, as I said, I don't think it's going to go away at all. I think a lot of people are going to be expecting and wanting us to continue to work in the ways that we've learned to.
Mazars is an international audit, tax and advisory firm committed to helping clients confidently build and grow their businesses. To find out how Mazars can support your business, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.
And it's empowering for employees to be able to do the work and, say, create their own schedules, for example. In a practical sense, how does that work? How can a boss allow employees to decide what they should be working on and when they should work on them?
I think it starts with really understanding what success looks like. I think it's always been the case that if we're really clear on what is the outcomes we're trying to achieve here, we can clearly articulate those expectations. The problem with having flexible work practices without that clarity is for employers it's really hard to know if people are delivering or not. I can't see them. I can't see whether or not they're working. If I can't phone them at a particular time and check in on them, then how do I know they're actually contributing? Well, the answer to that is knowing what the outputs are. What do people need to be delivering? Now, sometimes those outputs or the things they need to deliver require that they're available in certain hours. So, for example, that might be delivering to clients, being accessible to clients during certain hours. Part of the outcome might be that we are a collaborative team, that we're actually proactively working as a group to think about the way we work, to look for opportunities for improvement. All of that requires that we actually have strong bonds of trust and respect. So when we know what those outcomes are, both the physical outputs of our job, but also the strength of our team, then with that clearly stated, we can then work out, well, how do we work? What's the blend of ways of working that we need to bring in order to be able to achieve those outcomes? So for many of my clients, what we're saying to teams is, you know what the outcomes are? Now put your heads together around the best way to make that happen. And most teams are landing in a place where they have a blended way of working. So they're agreeing, okay, we need to be on site at certain times for certain reasons. And that might be team meetings, it might be team building days, it might be training sessions, it might be client meetings. But there are other times where we don't need to be on site. So in those moments, we can actually work remotely and we will communicate via technology, whether it's Teams or Zooms or telephone calls. So it's really about be really clear on what success looks like, set the boundaries within which people can then make their own decisions around how do I get this job done. So in my own team, there's days where we're all working remotely and that suits us perfectly well. I don't really mind if someone wants to get up early and do a few hours work and then go and walk their dog for an hour and a half, and then come back to work later. It really doesn't make any difference so long as the job's actually getting done.
Aside from workplace flexibility, what other trends do you see are impacting the workplace and the way people work?
So, again, I think it is about the role that technology plays, obviously. I think over my work lifetime, certainly we've seen a lot of change to the quality of people's jobs because a lot more things are automated, and artificial intelligence, for example, is continuing to have an impact on what we as human beings need to spend our time and energy on. So there's no doubt that that will continue to change, as you would expect. But I think when it comes to leadership, I really do think that the generations are demanding different attitudes. So we're speeding up, moving away from that command and control approach to leadership to a place where we need to inspire and engage and influence the way people behave because of their own choices. So that's going to continue to be the case, where there is a lot more autonomy and decision-making from individuals around the way in which they do get their jobs done. So again, it's part of COVID, but I think we're going to start to see teams being built from very diverse locations. I've got so many clients who are saying they no longer need to hire people within their own city. They can hire them from anywhere in Australia and even offshore. So Therefore, what hours people work and when they come together for their work day will continue to change as well.
And it provides opportunities for businesses to better shape the way they're run too, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I think long gone are the days on many levels where we can, as leaders, treat people like they're robots. And really, I think great performance and great success comes from tapping into the power of the human spirit in our business. When people are super passionate about what they're doing, really driven to achieve the outcomes, when they're really talented and want to apply that talent to achieving shared goals, that's when we get great results. So when employers or leaders learn to trust, learn to be deliberate in the way they're engaging people, the way they're influencing their contribution, they're more likely to achieve great outcomes.
That was Corporate Dojo CEO Karen Gately. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow at BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.